we just got done with a day of conference talks, and we're just gonna shoot the shit, man.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
What I'm best at, I think.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Before I go, where'll I put this?
Oh, yeah. Just put it. You just can clip it to the side, whatever. Just sort of out of sight, out of mind. And then when we're done, we're just gonna let you. You'll forget you have it on. We'll let you walk around. We'll just have you on a hot mic and hear what you have to say. No, I'm kidding. All right. I think the shots are good.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if we should change. I'm gonna move this a little bit. It's a little. See, like this side, it's very bright, but then this side is not bright enough. I'm gonna change it a little bit.
Do you need me to move?
No, you're perfect. Don't move. You look fantastic.
That's the first lie of this conversation.
No, that is not a lie. You do. You look good. You look good. Oops. So where in Ireland are you from?
Dublin.
Dublin. All right.
Yes.
I have not been. I really want to get out. Yeah, I really want to go. I don't hate me for this, but I am quite Scottish, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Have you been over there?
I have not. I really want to visit, and my bucket list item is to try and find some ancestor that we're connected to somehow, and just sit in a pub and have a couple of pints. And
there you go.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's hopefully.
Well, if you don't find anybody on paper, I'm sure somebody will adopt you when you want to go over there.
I hope so.
Pay for the first round.
There you go.
And then you've got a brother for life then. At that point.
There you go. Perfect. I'd love to do that. Love to do that. So I'll do like a quick intro, and then we'll just kind of run through these questions, and it's all highly editable. So if we need to stop, start, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, sounds
cool.
Good.
Perfect. All right.
So it's just going to be a free-flowing conversation, essentially. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. We're on. Okay. So today I'm sitting down with Mark Campbell, and he is a bioanalytical principal investigator at Solarion. Mark's been with us for close to a decade, growing through multiple roles. And I wanted to talk with him about how that journey has shaped how he approaches responsibility, teamwork, and client trust. So Mark, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
What's important to you in life that directly or indirectly connects to your work?
I think that's a bit of a tough question, trying to relate what I do here to who I am outside of life, but of course there has to be some sort of correlation there. Otherwise I wouldn't show up to work every day and I wouldn't be doing what I do, I guess, you know. I never looked for a career in drug development. It just kind of materialised that way. When I graduated college I got a job here, not really knowing what Solarion was, to be honest. Was just looking for a job out of college to stay with my friends. It was the first time I was able to actually earn some money. I had some other friends here that said that they enjoyed working here, so I'll give it a shot. And then over the years I progressed through the lab, understood as time went by what we actually did here. And then I think that who I am then kicked in because I became more inquisitive and I always want to know more about everything, and I'm kind of a person that if I'm going to do something I want to excel as much as I can at that. I'm not much of a coaster. To a fault, I think sometimes. I get a bit antsy and eager to progress when I need to just sit and soak a few things in to actually understand what I'm doing. But that I think has led me to where I am today, and it's benefited me, honestly, because there are things that I probably didn't need to know about within here, or parts of drug development as a whole, not necessarily in the bioanalytical setting. But I want to dabble in all of these different things, so because it all benefits in the long run. So I think that inquisitive nature was the main reason that I have kind of progressed into the role that I'm in today, and has driven me, I suppose. But then as that plays out, then you start to understand drug development more and what we're actually doing, and there's a lot more than just putting samples in a plate or running your batch every day and getting the results the next day. You understand that, okay, we're just a small chink in a larger chain of, not so much of a chink, a link, I would say. Yep. Not a chink, and I hope, try not to be a chink in the armour. Right. We'd be a link in the armour, but we are doing something for a purpose, and it relates back to the patients at the end of the day. Yes, we're providing a service. I don't like to say we're providing a service for a sponsor. We're working with a sponsor, but we're not supporting the sponsor as such, we're supporting the people that they are supporting. So there's an end user, and that essentially is the patient. So as you grow older and you understand more a little bit, you start to appreciate that a lot more, and then that becomes a driving force. But I'd be lying if I said that was the driving force at the beginning, because I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. But that's growth and experience, I suppose.
Perfect. And you're right. Drug development is incredibly large and complex machine, and very few people outside this industry have even an inkling of an idea how much goes into it, how many hours of work, how much science, how much money, how much time it really takes to get a drug successfully and safely to market.
Correct.
And I love how you said, I don't want to be a coaster.
That's it. Yeah,
Like
I said, to a detriment. I find I had a bit of a freak out there about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where I was comfortable in the position, but I found myself sitting on clinical calls, and yes, we were bioanalytical portion of a call, of an hour-long call, might be 5 or 10 minutes long. But if you're sitting on a call, you get to hear it and you get exposure to, like I said, the different areas of drug development, and you're like, okay, that sounds interesting, but I have no idea what that is, what they're talking about, but I want to know. So that drove me to actually going back to school to get a master's in drug development, just so I can partake or understand in those conversations. And I feel like that has benefited me as a whole, but it also benefits then the people I work with, because I can offer something to a sponsor on a call, or I can at least have an opinion in a conversation, let's say, or a voice that if I don't agree with something, I can speak up, just to even throw it out. If I get shot down, I get shot down, but at least you can partake.
Right.
So that was a driving force for me to kind of expand in that sense, because I knew it was going to benefit in the long run. And it's not like when you choose to go back to school, you do it because you want to do it. It's not because you have to go to school anymore. So there's a bit of a passion in you that's a driving force, and when you don't mind doing homework, you don't mind learning, because you're actively seeking out that knowledge.
100%. Excellent. So, and you've kind of touched on a lot of this, but I want you to kind of put on the perspective of, you just met somebody who's outside of our field, really doesn't understand how biotech works. How would you explain what a principal investigator actually does and why it matters in the process?
My first thing would be a firefighter, I would say. When people ask me what I do, I would say I'm a part-time firefighter, because I feel like I'm putting out fires all day, every day. So as a principal investigator, you're the link between a sponsor and Solarion. So, and you're the liaison and you're a representative of Solarion. So the face that they see when they think of Solarion is yours, and the voice that they hear is yours. So you're that representative. But on the back end, you are representing the sponsor to Solarion. So if the sponsor is taking their study in a certain road, or they're taking in a certain route and they need specific requirements, it's up to the principal investigator to convey what they need and ensure that we can deliver from a Solarion perspective. So that comes down to timelines, it comes down to intricacies within a method, within how samples need to be analysed, and that can change on a day-to-day basis. So like we touched on there, drug development is not straightforward, it is difficult, and you have to be adaptable every single day. So when I say I'm a firefighter, I think that I have everything. I could wake up on a Monday morning and have a call and everything is great. Tuesday comes around, everything that I thought I had under control is now up in the air, and you have to adapt, and you're putting out fires the next day in order to get it back on the road. So there's a lot that goes into it. You are not solely responsible, but you bear the weight of responsibility for any given study. So you're providing, you want to instill trust into your sponsor, into whoever you are dealing with, and you're, like I said, the representative of Solarion. So if things were to go wrong and fall by the wayside a little bit, you're responsible to recoup the team, to ensure that you get it back on track, and whatever delays that may be, or you're presenting bad news, you could present good news. You just have to weigh in those differences on a day-to-day basis, and understand that it's not always going to be good news that you have to convey. It can be good news. Sometimes it's going to be bad news, but what you have to incorporate is a solution. So if things don't go to plan, here's what we're going to do. This is where we need to go to get back on track. So you're instilling trust within the sponsor, but you also need to support your team as well at the same time.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Very long-winded that was, eh?
No, but it's
a bit of a ramble.
No, it maybe feel that way.
Yeah.
But it's brilliant. I love it. It's hitting a lot of things that I don't have to follow up with on a question, and then certain things I don't need to ask because it'd just be redundant. So you're doing great. I love this. Is exactly what I hoped for out of this conversation and the last one of the day. So it's wonderful. So a lot of your roles you mentioned is really about consistency and certainly about follow through. I can see that you're very careful about that. What details do you personally pay the closest attention to?
Well, every detail matters really, and I know that's kind of cliche, but everything that we do here, we try to be as efficient as possible in everything that we do. We try not to waste time or waste energy on things that aren't going to benefit us or our sponsor in the background. So as I've got older and as I've progressed through the lab roles into more management roles, into the VPI role, I start to recognise that every little thing that we do, even though it may seem a bit trivial, they do matter and there are purposes for everything that we do. I, as a BPI now, try and focus on, and I'm trying to instill trust, I guess, within the sponsor and try and create that harmonisation between a sponsor and us. I find when we get new sponsors in, personally, when I'm introduced to a new sponsor, there's always an element of apprehension on their side, and I can fully understand that. Whether that's due to them not experiencing working with a CRO before, so it's brand new to them, so they don't know. They're trying to feel us out as much as we want to try and make them know that we know what we're doing. That could be a case. There could be another case where perhaps the sponsor has had a previously bad experience with another CRO. So they come here again with apprehension and they're kind of trepidatious working with a new one. So they want to not micromanage per se, but they're trying to feel us out. So I quite enjoy trying to instill trust to let them know it's like, okay, we have it under control. I understand where you're coming from, but we'll do what we do and you will see it's going to take some time. And I try and say that it's a collaboration. It's not so much of yes, there's a contract on paper and we're working for you to provide a service for you, but it's not we're providing a service for you, we're working with you. It's a collaboration. Like there's two A sides, there's not an A side and a B side, because our success is your success and your success inherently is our success. And without that transparency and collaborative kind of outlook on things, it's never going to work. So if I have to give bad news, at least I'm giving bad news and you're aware of it. And if I can give good news, great as well. But it's not trying to hide things and not trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. Like you're trying to be as transparent as possible. It's about what would the term be? It's about being real. It's about being honest, because that's essentially what's going to build trust and delivering on what you promise as well. Anyone can be a great salesman, and you can say, like you said earlier on, we can talk till the cows come home what we can do here, our capabilities. We have all of this in the lab, all of this, we have all these people, but delivering is where trust is really built. So there's potential, but then there's also fulfillment. So I find if I'm going to tell you that I can get data to you on a given date, I'm not going to say that if I know I can't do it. If I absolutely cannot deliver on that day, I will let you know and we can deal with it and we can have that conversation, but I don't want to promise something to you knowing that it's not going to happen. So there's that transparency is actually, above all else, that's critical to me. 100%.
And two things that really stood out that occurred to me. One was, you mentioned all the details matter, and not to sound cliche, but you're not wrong. So one small detail missed in sample management or in assay method development can be the difference between a successful assay validation or a completely unsuccessful one.
Correct.
Which means time and money and all the frustration that goes with that.
Yep.
And from a trust perspective, I think, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, that more trust is built when things don't go right, and we're honest about it, and we find a solution and then deliver on the back end of that.
Correct.
And if it takes another week to get it done or whatever it is, then everything just going smoothly the first time.
Yep. Yeah. Because that's where you really see true colours of people, and it can be it's a good representation of who we are when we're faced against adversity. I know that's very cliche, but when things go wrong, it's how we react to it. And the sponsor as well, it depends on how can they be understanding in it. Sometimes they won't have bioanalytical experts, so it's up to us to convey that in a way, and we also have to adapt and give them some leeway. So if they're extremely frustrated because of a specific delay that's bioanalytical based, we have to understand that as well, because they may not know the intricacies and they don't know bioanalysis the way we know bioanalysis, and that's okay. That happens. I've had many conversations with the sponsors say, particularly introductory conversations or early conversations, that not every conversation that we have is going to be fun. You know, it's great when everything's going great, everyone's happy. Yeah, we can take that, no problem. But there will be times where I have to deliver probably subpar news, and you're not going to be happy with me. But it also goes the other way as well. So if a sponsor isn't providing us what we need, I will have a conversation with them also. So it might not be comfortable for them to hear some things, but there's also going to be times where it's uncomfortable for me. But I mean, that's relationships, you know.
It is.
You have it with your family, you have it with your other halves, you have it with anyone that you care about, with friends, but you just move on and get on with it then at that point.
Well said. Well said. You've also taken on leadership and mentoring along the way. What kind of example do you try to set for newer scientists?
I try and make them see the bigger picture earlier than probably I saw the bigger picture in terms of what we're doing here. Because like I said, I'll hold my hands up, when I first came in here, didn't really know there was more to life than just putting a sample in a plate and extracting and handing it at the end of the day. The downstream, bigger picture from a drug development standpoint and for what we're doing and why we're doing it was kind of lost on me. I didn't truly understand, and the intricacies of the documentation, like the outcome of poor documentation, the outcome of when things do go wrong, and the implications, they were not very clear. So I probably didn't appreciate them as much, being a junior scientist, not knowing, a bit in a naive kind of perspective. So I'm relatively young in the sense of we have extreme tenure in this place. So I'd be on the younger side of my peers, I'd say. So I feel like I've that closer link to those that are in the lab still. And I try and instill that to them to give them a bit of a head start to what I would have had, I would say. But just emphasis on, like I said, the minor details. If there's something that isn't needed, then we need to update our processes and become more streamlined and efficient. But at the moment, I feel like we are as efficient as we possibly can be. Not that there's not room for improvement, there always is. But the little details that may seem trivial to an analyst or to a QC person, anybody that doesn't get exposure, let's say, to the larger picture, is trying to emphasize that, no, those details do matter, and this is why. And you need to take pride in your work, because if you I try to instill self-QCing of your own work. Yes, we have a great process here where your peers will QC your work in real time, but I try and instill to the analyst that the peer reviewer is not responsible for your work, that you're responsible for your own work. So the primary QCing should be you. And if you need to correct yourself. So if you find an error in your documentation, you need to correct it. And that second person is just a verification that everything is correct. It's not their job to find things that may be incorrect. So it's that trying to put the power into the hands of the analysts, put the power into the hands of people to make them understand that, yeah, you are responsible, and we're putting a lot of trust in you. Because if you find an error that's wrong the next day, or it's missed, there are serious downstream implications. It's not just a case of you run your batch the next day. There are timelines. We might miss a timeline, and for a sponsor, that timeline may result to millions of dollars, like delays for everything else. But on the back end, then that could be the difference between a drug getting to market or not getting to market. And then there's patients that are waiting and hoping for this drug to get to market. So yes, it might seem like a little documentation error here, but that snowball effect has an effect far greater than what you would think.
100%. And if they don't have, or you don't have somebody in your life, friends or family that are sick,
Yeah.
And with something that is complicated to diagnose, is complicated to treat. There are people waiting for months,
Absolutely.
for years, who've been suffering with chronic diseases that are like, "God, please come out with the next thing.
Yep.
I need help."
Yep.
And it matters.
Yeah,
It
and they've
really
been
does.
bounced around between physicians, and they've been bounced around to different medications. And I'm fortunate that in my life, I haven't had any family friends that have had to do that per se. Yes, there's a couple probably, but the majority of people may not fully understand that, you know. And I didn't, only more, like I said, my education, with the masters that I did, that exposed me to it. So as much experience that I was gaining within here, that really drove it home, because obviously I'm a bioanalyst here, a scientist in that sense. So the clinical side of things, the pharmaceutical side of things, didn't have that exposure. So if I'm not getting exposed to that in my position, an analyst or somebody within the lab, they're absolutely not getting exposed to that. If they are, and in their own life, then they may. That's unfortunate, but there's benefit in that, in the sense that they appreciate what they're doing. Not that the analysts don't appreciate what they're doing, but sometimes that larger picture and that full circle moment can actually make things click.
Indeed, indeed. You've really already answered my last question about what kind of drives you, right? It's like, oh, but I want to know what's next. And there's the pros, cons to that, right? The pros is there's still, drug development is so broad, deep, and wide that there's plenty to, there's always going to be more to learn. How do you kind of manage that? That's sort of daunting. It's like, I want to know it all. I'm the same way. It's like, well, what about that though? And it's kind of frustrating in that moment, right? When it's like, ooh, I wish I knew exactly what that was all about.
Yeah.
How do you manage kind of that feeling without getting discouraged with so much, overwhelming information that's out there, and that drive to go ahead and move forward and learn what you can and move forward?
I mean, that's a balance between being professional and understanding that you're here to do a job, and your personal side of things, your ego side of things, or your inquisitive nature. So yeah, I might want to know, or I might want to interrupt the clinical call to understand what they're talking about, but I don't want to derail this call because it's clearly important, and my inquisitive nature does not hold water when it comes to what's more important, of actually that discussion or me understanding what that discussion is. So I feel like that's not so much of an issue with myself. If I really, really want to know, I can reach out after a call, or I can do this and that. I understand that I have a job to do, and I have a big part to play in a bigger issue and a bigger play in itself. So I don't really let that affect me as such.
Good deal.
Yeah.
All right. What do you do for fun? What is your, when you're on the outside, what's
I used to play ball. I used to play football or soccer, as you say over here.
Yeah.
But my hamstring is not what it used to be, put it that way.
Yeah.
So that has not allowed me to run for more than 30 seconds over the last year or so. Mind you, I haven't done anything to sort that out, to be honest. I pulled it last year. I was playing indoor, and I haven't stretched. I've never been able to touch my toes. I'm only 5'10", 5'11". Never been able to touch my toes, so I'm not the most flexible guy. So I think youth was on my side growing up,
Yeah.
So I never really got injured growing up too much. Felt it go. I was like, oh God, that's not great. Rested it for a while, and then came back a couple of months later, thinking it was great. Said I'm just going to jog around a little bit. I'm not going to go too crazy, but then that switch comes on. There's a loose ball, so I sprinted for the loose ball straight away. Hamstring gone again. So now I'm more terrified to play ball than anything else, because I just hate being hurt. I hate being injured. So it could be good.
Yeah.
It could be alright to play, but I'm a bit of a wuss in that sense, because I just don't want to be hurt again. So that day will come.
I get it. I like to mountain bike, and I ride with a guy occasionally who's quite a bit younger than me. And so he's very patient with me, but I try to keep up with him at times. and I don't have the same type of bike, because he's got a standard mountain bike, really good one, and I have a fat tire, and so it doesn't maneuver quite as nimbly.
Yeah.
And I took a turn a little too wide, caught the edge of a small tree, and the bike stopped. I didn't.
Yeah.
And I went over. And yeah, that made me rethink my limitations.
Absolutely,
You
life
know.
comes at you fast.
Luckily, it was only a minor injury.
Yeah.
But sometimes those small things, it makes you think twice.
Oh, I bet.
You know?
Yeah. No, I certainly
You get
do
it.
with me anymore. And I don't find myself, I didn't feel like I was getting older, you know. But then you play against these kids that are in college and they're actually fit.
Yeah.
And like, I've lost my touch a little bit. And it's a little bit depressing, to be honest with you. But I don't mind.
I'd like to encourage you, but I have no encouragement. Because someday you're going to wake up and your knee will hurt. And you're
Yeah.
like, why?
Yeah.
And then you'll look in the mirror and like, oh, yeah, I'm old.
I have
And there's no good reason for it other
Visions
than
of
that.
you going on your bike rides with your pal, and he has a WD-40, you know, for the bike. You spraying it on your knees.
Yeah, it's like, it is, yeah.
I'm actually going to San Francisco tomorrow in the morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
my friend,
Good. I'm glad I caught you.
a couple of friends are flying out for a birthday / engagement party, but he has since taken up biking. So he's training for a 100-mile bike ride somewhere.
Wow.
But now all of a sudden we are going out on Friday night for a meal and a few drinks. But I've now been roped into cycling at 11 o'clock the next day.
Oh,
So
fun.
can't even enjoy a lion on my little holiday away. So they wanted to get manual bikes, but I staunchly spoke against it.
Yeah.
So we're getting our electronic bikes.
There you go. Oh, that
Yeah.
helped. And actually, my friend has one, an e-mountain bike, and a lot of times he'll lend that to me because going uphill over rocks,
Oh man,
I can't keep up with it, man.
it's
hard.
terrible.
It's hard
It's
work.
terrible. The first time I was ever in San Francisco, I was with my wife and I met my mum and dad there. And my ma is 5'4". She has like a walking stick that she uses just to help her around. She has arthritis, fibromyalgia, so it flares up, comes and goes. And we decided, we'll bike across the Golden Gate Bridge. So we went down to Fisherman's Wharf and we got to this bike place. Didn't realise that there was e-bikes. We all got manuals. But biking from Fisherman's Wharf down to the Golden Gate Bridge is a trek. And it's obviously San Francisco's not flat. So there was I think there was a hill, there was a 45-degree hill we were trying to cycle up, and I was fit at the time, you know, well, yeah, relatively fit, you could say. And I was struggling, and look at me back, me poor man, I'm like, man, get off that bike. So I think the 2 or 3 of us, my dad tried to get through, but we were just walking our bikes all the way up to the top of the hill, and we get across.
Brutal.
Seemed to flatten out, and then we had to cycle across this beach, which was no bueno either. But it was only after the fact we cycled across Golden Gate Bridge down to Sausalito and got the boat back over. It was only when we brought them back to the shop that we realised there was actually e-bikes there. So
You're like, come on.
yeah, I tried to I tried to steer my ma's eyesight away from it, because had she found out, I would have got a beating.
Right?
Yeah,
dare
I'm just
you, Mark.
subjected to 5 hours of torture, but we lived to tell the tale.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good memory.
It is indeed, it is.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks so much for being here, for sharing your perspective, for talking about what it's been like growing in this role, what's important to you, what's important to us collectively and to the patient ultimately, and appreciate really the steadiness and the dedication you bring to your work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Till next time.
Awesome. That was killer, man.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Sweet.
I was 100% right, saving you the best for last.